just to give a very quick introduction for those that might be new to this call, this is our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our open Q&A session. So our goal here is that we typically don't come to the table with any kind of agenda or anything that we're going to walk through or present. This is really just meant to be a forum for your questions. Or if you're stuck on a trailhead badge, you have an issue at work, you're looking for a couple additional sets of eyes to try to help address some kind of issue or some error that you're facing, whatever it is. Any question is fair game. All that we ask you to do is just raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand icon that should be in your toolbar down there, and we'll try to do the best we can to answer questions. So with that, Sandy, what do you got?
So I got very excited this week because I have been trying to figure this out for a while, and apparently it's actually existed for a long time, and I don't know why I didn't know it, because I know I've asked it before. I don't remember if I've asked it here, but on a screen flow, when you have there's a dependent pick list, getting just the restricted things. So if you've got one of those kinds where if, value, the controlling one has this value, then only these ones are selected on the next pick list.
Yeah.
I was never able to figure out how to only have those ones showing. Well, apparently there's an actual dependent pick list component on a screen flow. So I was very excited to learn about that.
So yeah, and I can share just to kind of walk through that, just to give people an idea of what we're speaking about here. Now, was there an issue, or is that you just want to share that you actually found the solution for an issue you're having?
I was excited about that, so I wanted to share that. But the question is that the one I'm trying to work on is it's kind of one of those ones that kind of keeps going through. It's like, so you want to add a request about this, and to kind of do you want to add another one, and goes through again. So, but we also want to restrict it so that with the controlling pick list, that one can't be changed, but the choices, on the other ones can be.
Yeah.
But I cannot figure out how to lock it down.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it is dependent, and it's an own component for all the different choices or all the different pick list fields that would be visible. The only solution I've come up with is kind of doing like a decision element on, did they change the value of this one between this time and this time? And if they did, then just send them like to an error message screen and telling them to go back.
Yeah, I wonder if on your screen, every component that you add to a screen, and I'm going to try to share my screen to walk through this, but when you're creating a screen-based flow, you're basically building the screen portion of it, and you're dragging components on there like a field or a pick list or whatever it is. Each of those individual components, correct me if I'm wrong, but has that like visibility criteria that you should be able to say, show this if. And I wonder for that controlling pick list, like the top part of it, if you had that as well as a display text, and basically you're checking a variable to say, was this already set, then display the display text. And if it hasn't been set yet, then allow them to actually make the change. But in other words, like when you actually pass that screen for the first time, update that variable so that the next time that you go through it, it's already been set, and they'll now see the display text instead of the actual like pick list. Is that a thing, or is that does that lead to issues where the child part of it doesn't know that like the parent's there because that pick list isn't there on the screen anymore?
I'm not sure I followed what you're trying to ask.
Yes, in other words, like on your screen, you have the parent dependent, like in the dependency, you have the parent and then you have the child both displayed on your screen, right?
No. So
Okay.
the dependent pick list component, the choice it has, the way it's kind of set up is that you can select the object that you want it to be of, so that you're actually pulling it from the actual or the object that you have. So you put the API name in, and then it asks for the pick list 1 API name and pick list 2 API name up to 3. So because it's a single component, it only displays that controlling one initially until you make a selection. Then it gives you the choice for pick list two. Then that field pops up on the screen. And then if you make a choice where the third one is something to pick, then it will do that. With the
Okay.
visible, I'm not, I wonder, well, actually, I wonder if you can do component visibility.
Yeah, let's actually walk through this. So what I'm going to do is I just want to create a dependent pick list for those that might not be familiar. So let's start with creating just a simple pick list field here, and we'll call this um, parent pick list. Okay, and I'm doing this on the account object. It can be any object though, and we'll call it parent value one. And then what I'll do is just copy this. Okay, and then we'll just put some values in here. All right, so we have a parent pick list, make it available for everybody, add it to all of our layouts, and I should have clicked save and new, but that's okay. I'll go in here, create a new one, and this will be another pick list, and we'll call this child pick list. All right, same thing here. So child value space. I'll try to be smarter with it this time, so I don't have to do the deletes. So copy, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll just do like 8. Okay, so now we got a bunch of child values in our child pick list. All right, now we get to the actual dependency part of this, right? So once I have both my pick lists defined, you'll notice here that under fields and relationships, that there's a button here for field dependencies. Okay, so if I were to click on that, this will take me in and show me all the field dependencies. I don't have any right now, so let's go ahead and create a new one. So I'll click new. Now the controlling field, this is what we've been referring to as kind of like the parent. So I'm going to select parent pick list, and the dependent field is going to be the child pick list. All right, so now once I select those, it's going to bring me in here and actually tell me that, okay, for each of my parent values, what are the allowed child values? So just to keep this simple, we'll say 1 and 2 for that one, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe this one is 1, 3, 5, 7. I'm going to say include, and then we'll go to the next page for the last one, and this is going to be 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay, so there we go. So we identified for each parent value, what are the allowed child values? All right, now we get into the screen flow part of it, and this I've actually never worked with before, so this will be new for me as well. So if we go into create a new flow, we're going to select screen flow. And on the left here, or actually under the add element, we're going to select screen. And then this is where we look at this thing, which I've never seen before. So we
Right?
select dependent pick list. All right, so what are we working with over here? So this is going to be the API name of this field. So my dependent pick list. I had to figure out the spelling there for a second. Sorry. All right, so that's our API name. Now the object API name, this is going to be the object where the dependent pick list exists. So in the case of an account, I'm assuming this is going to be account. The API name of pick list one, which I'm assuming is, whoops, let's see, pick list one, pick list two. Okay, so I'm assuming that's going to be the parent controlling
Mhm.
pick list, and this is the child. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my account, and I'm going to just search for pick list because I put that in the name, and we're going to grab the API name of the parent and throw that in there. We'll pick the API name of the child, and we'll throw that in here. And then for the label, I'm just going to say parent. Where do I keep clicking out of that? I don't know why I think it's 1Password keeps popping up here. All right, so picklist one label is parent. Picklist one required, I'm going to say is true. And I'm going to ignore that. Picklist two label is going to be child. I'm going to say that that's required as well. And then I'm not going to put anything there. And then it's got pick list 3. Okay. All right. And anything under advanced? No. All right. So let's click done. Figure out what we missed here. Okay. So this is dependent. No, that's not even close. Whatever. Depend pick list screen. All right. and let's click done. Okay, so just with that now, we have our screen with just our dependent pick list. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Depend pick list test, and we'll save. Okay, so now that we have that saved, let's actually run this and see what happens here. So when you're creating a screen-based flow, or any other flow for that matter, in certain circumstances, you can either run or debug. In our case, we're just going to run this. And now it's asking me to select a parent value. And if I select value 1, we see child values 1 and 2. And if I were to select value 2, then I see 3 and 4, and so on, just based on the dependency. All right. Now, to get to your actual question, in your case here, you're going through the screen. I'm assuming you have some things that you're doing after that screen, but in the end, you want to loop back to the beginning and essentially see that same screen. But if they've already selected, for example, parent value 1, the next time that they loop through, you don't want them to be able to select parent value 1. You want that to be set where they can't change it again.
Correct.
Okay. That's a good question.
So what I actually did though, because like I said, for my solution that I came up with was I actually just kind of cloned it. So I had two, and then I kind of put a decision element where it said if the value from it the first time is not the same as the value from it the second time,
Take you somewhere else.
then yeah, and then hey, go back and fix either your error or you have to create a whole new ever. And then I figured it would just loop through the second one instead of loop through the original one. So that's like my temporary one, but I still can't, I don't like that I can't lock it down and that they might enter all this information and then have to go back and
Yeah,
lose
it
it.
doesn't seem like there's a great way to do that. Because in my original kind of thoughts here, I was thinking that it was like two separate components that you had, like two separate pick lists. But this being, it's kind of like a self-contained thing. Um, I
So
don't.
the other thing I discovered is if I actually go onto the left side where the components are and
Mhm.
change it to fields, and if you have to have record variable,
All right,
but then
so
it'll
let's.
pull.
Okay, so let's create an account variable here. Oh my God. All right, so if we create an account, record. Okay, so done. So now it should allow me to select fields from the account. So yeah, so maybe this is maybe closer to what I was thinking here. So in this case, if we just search for pick list, we put the parent pick list here, and then the child, is it smart enough to know that they're dependent in
It
the
is.
UI? All
It
right,
is,
so
but I still don't know how to lock the one down.
okay, so I think that we might be able to do here. So let's see. Um, okay, so now we're looking at this. This is our dependent pick list, and then this is the two fields that we just added. Now it looks like it's smart enough because I'm noticing that the child is locked because we haven't set a value here for the parent yet. So in that case, we select value 1, and then we get 1 or 2. Same thing, we go to 2. That should be 3 or 4. Okay, now what if I selected 3 or 4? If I
I
click
just have
finish, okay, so yeah, let's do that. And that. When you finish,
actually.
it takes me right back here, and everything is
So
reset.
you can do visibility on those too, based on the value of something else, but I don't know if you can preset what the value is because of the way it looks.
Yeah, so this doesn't give you a lot of options for like um, setting the value or tying it directly to a variable or anything like that.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think there's a great option here, honestly.
well,
Um,
okay, so here's my other question. Since I have actually never used this before, because it does kind of say something like up in the little help text about how you can use it later. So if you reuse that same thing in a different screen, does it know, like, I don't know how it would be identified specifically, but I was just thinking if you can do visibility, um, like the parent is, visible. I
yeah,
wonder if I can do that. or if that would screw things up on a second screen.
Yeah, I guess the issue that I have here, and let's just see, like if I added in here an assignment, do something, and
Your test wording is just like mine.
all right, so I'm gonna create a some text variable. Make this text. Default value doesn't matter. The only reason I want to create this variable is just so that in my assignment block, I can set that equal to something, right? And then what I was hoping to do is after this, if I connect this to an element here, so essentially like we have the loop, so it's not ending the screen flow and then like resetting everything. I just want to see if it just loops through what is the end state of those variables, or what does it look like after each iteration? Does it reset them or not? My hope is that it doesn't, and then I think we might have an option here. So this is the one that we know is not going to work. I'm just going to set those values. But in this case, this is tied to an actual variable that we have. So if I set that to something different than the other one, hold on. All right, so 3 and 6. And when I click next, it's going to go to my assignment block, and then she'll loop me right back to the screen. Okay, so that's already been set to 3 and 6. It's already there. Now, I guess my question would be is, if you imagine those fields are tied to a variable, whether you're displaying the fields from the variable or not, those fields are set on that variable. So I guess I'm wondering is, let's get rid of this thing just so we don't have to keep setting the values there. I'm going to delete that. So I guess the question would be is, on this parent pick list, if I set a visibility filter where all conditions are true, can we say if the account variable parent pick list is something, what is it? Is equal to, actually does not equal to blank. No, we want to display it. So if it's equal to blank, display it. If not, don't display it at all. All right, but it's still set behind the scenes. We're just saying whether or not we're going to display this field on the screen. And then on the flip side, so if it has been set already, if we just throw in display text, and this is like a parent field displayer, right? And we insert a resource here, and this is going to be the account variable parent pick list. So it's just going to display the value instead. So now if I save this and we run, so first pass, when we come in here, I'm going to see both because that's not set to anything. So if I set that to value 1 and then set that to child value 1 and then click next, now that's locked, but I still have the ability to set value 2 and so on. So maybe that's an option. Instead of using that convenient yet not very flexible dependent pick list option, you go your route of creating a variable of whatever object type it is, put the fields
Mhm.
on there separately using this fields mechanism, and then you just do a condition where, once it's set, don't display the field anymore, but instead just display a display text that has the value. So they'll see it there, and then they can continue on with changing the child in the dependency, but they won't have the ability to change that parent anymore. Maybe.
Okay. Maybe.
Right. All right. Anybody have any questions on that or any other ideas on other ways that we could address that issue? Dependent pick lists, screen flows. All right. As always, Sandy, report back once you actually have a chance to go through that and let us know how that worked out.
Okay.
All right. Looks like Julia has a hand up. Julia, do you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the situation is also ScreenFlow. I'm using the send email ScreenFlow action. I'm creating a custom send email button because I need to do a to and a BCC. So I'm creating two action flows, one to the to and one to the BCC once the user selects or inputs their address in there.
Yeah.
But the question, the issue I'm having is because it uses only one resource, I want them to be able to add in the body of the email their own, unique text, whatever they want to write. But I
Right.
want to also provide the link to the record ID. Don't know if there's a way to do that.
All right, let me say that all back to you. So um, I guess there's kind of two separate things here. Let me start with the latter half of this. So in a screen flow, you want to have the ability that you do a send email action, but you also want it to, in the template, give your user the opportunity to put in like their own little blurb that would go as part of that email. So every time they could just type something in there real like unique and real quick and click next and it would send the email with that blurb included in the template. The next time they run it, maybe they put a different blurb in there and then they send it, it'll go to a different person with that different blurb. Is that kind of like you want to make it so that the email template itself is kind of dynamic so that the user has the ability to customize it?
Correct. But then I want the link to the record of so basically I'm creating a task. They want to send the task, but they want to blind carbon copy that task to, upper level or whomever, and they want to be able to do it whenever they want to do it.
Okay.
And then so they have to have the blurb, and then we need a quick link to the record so that the user can go and find that task.
Okay. Now, so for that part, the task. So I guess where are you starting the screen flow from? Is it from like an account record or something else where you're creating a task and then you're sending an email about that task?
I'm starting it from the record ID and I'm creating a custom button that will link to the flow. So it'll be like send email or something.
Okay. And that record that you're clicking that button from, what type of record is that?
A task record
Okay.
ID.
So, all right. I think I have the full picture now. So you're on a task record. You have a button there that says like send email. You click that. You want to be able to input some kind of blurb, into the template. And when they click send, it's going to generate an email, send it to the whoever was on the to line there, with the email, with that custom blurb, as well as a link that would allow them to click on it to get back to that task where you had clicked the button from.
Gotcha. That's it.
Okay, so I think I'm tracking here. Let me share my screen and let's see if we can do this here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of this. Let's save this in case any questions come back up. I'm not going to modify this. Let's go back here. And before we get started, now whether it's a task or it's an account, I don't feel like there should be any big difference. So I'm actually going to create my button from the account record. I guess it doesn't really matter, but okay, yeah. In any case, let's just jump into this and see what we can do. All right, so let's do a new flow. Let's get rid of all these things that have opened up here. All right, so just like before, this is going to be a screen flow. And before we do anything, let's start with the most basic thing here where we're trying to click a button from a record and we wanted to open up a flow with that record kind of in context. We know where we came from. Let's start with that. So let's add a screen here. And I'm just going to keep it simple and just call this primary screen. I don't know, not feeling too creative here. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add display text here. And let's call this record ID displayer. Okay. And I should have created this variable before, but I'm just going to do it from here. So I want to create a new resource, and this is going to allow us to actually pass the record ID in from wherever we started the flow. So I'm going to create a new variable, and we're going to call this record ID with a capital I. That's very important. And we click, we're going to make this of type text. And the key thing here
Bill,
is
make
yes.
it data type record. Then you
I
can
thought
set
about
your
that, but
record.
if
Yeah.
I guess the question I would have is if we're going to use it on different places, would we want it to be a record of a certain type, or would I just want to have it the ID and then I can do some kind of like decision making based on the
Well, you
ID?
still get the ID. It'd just be like record ID.id later.
Okay.
Because otherwise, like you're going to need to put in a get records before your screen to
Yep.
populate everything. So
All right,
just
so
save
let's
your
go with
call.
record. I'll buy it for $1.
Oh no, so API name still record ID.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, like
Well, that,
depending on like how you're launching it from the screen, like either you need it to be the same or you could have it something else. Like if it's permanently on the screen, you can use any variable name. But if you're launching from a button, then yeah, it's still record ID.
well, I think that's ridiculous that it's record ID, but it's actually a record. but let's go with it. All right, so then the key piece here is we want to make sure this is checked for available for input. All right, so now that we create that variable, that we have it there, so I guess what we need to do here is actually do record ID dot, let's just go name, since we got the record. That's a great suggestion. Now I don't have to do that get, like I said. So all I want to do is just make sure that when we get to the flow, that everything is working correctly. So before I do anything else, and before we get too elaborate in the email part of this, let's just call this account email sender thing, whatever. Save that. Let's activate this, and let's just make sure it's working, first of all. So if I were to go to one of my accounts, in theory, I should be able to edit my page and throw in this this flow, and we should be able to see if it's working. Now, there's two pieces of this. We want the flow to work, and then we also want to be able to call it from a button. So we'll take care of both these items here. Let's just run a quick test. So if we throw a flow in here, we want to make sure, yep, account email sender thing. So that's there. And I feel like there's something missing here, but let's just click save and see what happens. All right, so we go back here. When we display this on this account record, I should see the account name being displayed in the flow. Maybe.
Yeah, you're on an opportunity record.
Yeah, that's you passed the test. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Let's go back here and try that again. All right, so let's do that one more time now that we're on the actual record that we're setting this up for. All right, so let's grab the flow here. That was just a negative test. I just wanted to make sure it wouldn't work with other objects, you know. All right, so now we have it on there. And okay, so yeah, passing it in there. That's interesting. So that's a I mentioned earlier that it feels like there was something missing, but the fact that we set that as a record and we set the type of the record to account, when I added the flow into the opportunity, it didn't give me that option because it makes sense. You're not going to pass an opportunity into an account variable, but now that I'm on an account, it actually gives me that option to pass it in there. So that I've never seen that before. That's good to know. And I feel like because I'm seeing that and we're on an account now, that should work. So if we go back now, we should see whatever this account name is here displayed on the screen. Okay, step one, we have a flow that has a screen that's displaying whatever account that we're on, the name of the account passed into it. Now, again, before we get into the email portion of this, let's just do one last test here. We want to get it where we have a button to click on instead of displaying it on the layout. So to do that, I'm going to go back into the account within setup, and I'm going to go to buttons, links, and actions. And let's see if we can create a new action here that'll allow us to have a button there. So if we go here under action type, I'm going to select flow. You can see account sender thing is already there, so we'll use that. The label will be send some account email, right? It'll default the name, and let's click save. Now, just because you create the action, it doesn't actually put it on the page anywhere, right? So if I were to refresh this here, we're not going to see that action yet. We have to actually add it onto the layout. And instead of doing that from the old school page layout way, I'm just going to edit the page, and we'll use dynamic actions to actually select what actions we want to display here. So from the Lightning App Builder, as I edited the page here, I should be able to click on this guy. Right, so we click on this one here. It should allow me to upgrade. I'm going to, normally I do the migrate thing, but then you get like 400 different actions there. So I'm just going to do start from scratch and finish. And now that we have upgraded to the dynamic actions, now I can actually select which actions I want to display here. So just to keep it consistent, we'll throw in edit, and we'll throw in delete. And I'll throw in, hopefully we'll see the one that we created here. So if I scroll down, you see send some account email. All right, so now we have the button available. I'll save again. We'll go back. And now in theory, when I click that button, screen should pop up with the account name that we have in focus. And then we can actually get into the actual answering the question part of the answer here. So right now I should be able to click send some email, a little screen will pop up and it has our account name. So that part of it, the wiring to get it from the account to the actual flow is working. And we can now get into the important part of sending email. All right, so Lee, when you're actually building this email, I'm assuming that you're using the action send email.
Yes, a simple version form, and it allows you to toggle on and off. Yes, like the body, the recipient, subject, etc.
Okay, so if I were
I
to go
give
in
you
here,
one more background that
yeah,
I did use to try to find a link. I created a base URL and I found the unique variable because when you're doing it between like your sandbox and production, you don't want to hard code it in. So I did try to use that. I'm able to get the link. The problem I'm having is how do I get the link and the text from the user into one
yeah.
section?
Okay, so let's go through that now. Now I'm guessing it's not gonna let me save this and complete it. Yeah. So what if I undo that? Okay, so you definitely have to do some kind of body. Can I just type in test just to get out of the screen? Okay, so what we need to do is basically be able to construct the body of the email, and also allow the user to enter information before we actually send it. So let's do this here. Let's go into our screen and let's give the user a way to enter that kind of snippet, right? So I'm going to put a text entry in here, and this will be email blurb. I don't know. I'm having some trouble naming variables today, as you guys can see. All
You
right,
can
so
just
that's
call it
our,
email body.
yeah, well, we're not going to call it email body because we're going to include this as
Oh,
part
okay,
of some
got it.
other stuff as well. So this is just the
Gotcha.
blurb part that we're going to build. So
Gotcha.
we give them the ability to enter that. And then what I'm going to do is over here on our manager, I'm going to create a new resource. This is going to be a text template. And I'm going to call this email body. All right, now in the body, I'm going to have something like this is the first sentence. And then this is the bottom sentence. And then right in the middle, this is where we're going to actually insert our blurb. I guess I meant to put blurb, whatever. All right, so email blurb is going to go right in the middle. And then I'm going to click done. And before we actually send the email, let's actually give ourselves a mechanism to actually see what it looks like as we're doing this. So we're going to call this like the verification screen. And then here, I'm going to do a display text. And in theory, I think I can do so we'll call this email body displayer. That's the third time I've used the word displayer on this call. I don't know what's going on. All right, so let's call this, can we see, yeah, email body. So we're just going to display that just so we can see what it looks like when it combines everything together. Now, just so that, well, we'll leave that there. I was going to take that out, but let's, we just won't click next when we get to our verifier screen. Let's see, these issues prevent activation, provide at least one email recipient. Okay, so if anybody ever needs to get in touch with me, you can just send it to this email address. Actually, don't do that because that's not a real email address. All right, so we'll save and run. All right, so now in theory, I should be able to put my email blurb in here. So this is the sentence in the middle. And when I click next now, you can see this is what the email body is going to be. So it's what I had hard coded here in the text template, plus whatever I typed in to that text box, right? So now we know that it's combining them correctly. So what we can do then is in our actual email action, if we were to click next on that screen, in the body, instead of like just putting some nonsense in there, we can actually say the body is going to be this text template. All right. So that takes care of one of the use cases where now we're giving the user the ability to type something in that's unique. We're giving them the verification screen where they can see how that thing they typed in unique kind of fits into the overall template. So it's what we hard coded in there plus what they typed in. Now, the final question is, well, how do we get the record ID of the record that we started, like a link to that? And I think the short answer is I have absolutely no idea, but let's see if we can figure it out. So typically, well, let me pause here. Does anybody have any thoughts on the best way to do this? Because I was going to go with something like this, where I was going to click a link and put the title as like,
I'll get you
click
the link, Bill.
here.
There's a classic formula for this.
Yeah, I was just going to do like the slash, like a relative URL with the record ID. Is there a better way to go with that, Steve?
Yeah, 1 minute.
All right, what do you got?
I think actually the person who asked the question said they already had this done though. So
Julie, you got that part where the record ID is included?
Yeah, but I don't have it on my top of my head and I'm driving.
Okay.
It's left something 260. You
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
then Google it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that
And
one,
then
Bill,
you
you can
slash
open up
mark record ID.
the link I shared because there's just like a couple
Uh,
things with this article.
Okay, let's take a look here.
So just want to highlight. So if you scroll down,
This is a Salesforce famous person that if anybody on the call is not familiar with, you should be familiar with generally.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is why like there's a few blogs which have got a similar thing up. So yeah, there's the formula just there. But just before you copy this, there's just like two things to note. So like the API.partner server URL 260, that's
Yeah.
referring to API 26. And then so like that we should update that to like 590 now because we're on API version 59. And then when you copy that, the two like single apostrophes around the word services,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to copy correctly across. Like it's going to be a different symbol, not a single apostrophe. So you're going to
Yeah.
get these weird syntax errors. So
So it's like a kind of like dashes. Sometimes they grab a Microsoft
yeah,
dash, which you have to like delete and then recreate. Okay, I'm gonna give this a whirl here. I'm not sold on this whole having to find this partner server URL and everything else. I thought you can just use relative URLs, but let's see. So you're saying I should just replace that, like delete it and just retype it in?
yeah, correct. Yeah, so you see they're slightly different, and then so that last bit that'll be your and record ID.id.
Okay, so let's delete that guy. Insert a resource, record ID, ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Let's
then yeah, for the API, like you can use the resource to put that in as well to get like the latest version, or you can just change 26 to 59.
yeah, let's just to see where we get that from. So if I were to go to API, and I'm sure there's some nuance here as like to which one, partner, enterprise, everything else, but let's just keep it simple and go what you suggested, which is just to replace that with 59. Okay, so I'm going to click done. Let's click save and actually see what that does. All right, so run. All right, here's my blurb that I have to type in. Something, blah, blah. Okay, now I'm assuming,
Because you put in literal text, like rather than a formula field into a text template.
okay, so what exactly would I have to use then to do this?
Like just
Maybe
create
you
a
can
formula
put link.
resource.
Yeah, like you could put it in another area and then link back to that. You could create another variable with text and then make it a URL link out. Yeah.
Is it smart enough to do
There you
that?
go. It should, but
I'm going to say I don't think it's going to be smart enough to do that. Let's see.
Yeah, I think you need to make a formula, but
Okay, but just to satisfy my curiosity, I'm going to see what happens when we do that here. All right, so let's click next. I mean, it looks linky. I kind of hesitate to click on this thing. Okay, so yeah, that's not it. Okay, so let's go back here. So you're saying create a new resource of type formula.
yes.
Okay, And then we're going to call this count link. I'm assuming the data type is going to be of type text. And then I'm assuming that the function, we're going to grab like a hyperlink function.
No, just like copying what you had. Should be fine.
Just paste right there.
Yeah, and just like check the syntax. It should be good. Yeah.
Okay. And then you're saying go back to the text template, delete the nonsense that I created
Correct.
right here.
Yeah, and then so like typically what I'll do is in like insert a resource. Now you'll find your formula. And then like copy that and then Control X to like cut it. And then type in like what you want to see. Like, oh yeah, I guess like, yeah, you can do your link way the other way. But yeah, click here.
And then just highlight that thing, link.
Yeah, correct. And then in the URL, then yeah, you put the variable.
Okay, let's see if that how that works here.
And just go debug Bill instead, because yeah, like you got to pass in an ID, which I think is why you run. Does it work?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So let's do Burlington run test next. Click here, and then in theory that should take me to the account.
Just that easy.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's actually go back here to where are we at? Let me move all this stuff out of the way. All right, so let's activate this real quick. And if I go back to my account, let's just refresh this here. So in theory now, we have a button that we can click on that will run a screen flow, which is aware of the context of where you clicked it. So it's going to know that we clicked it from this particular account. It gives the user the ability to enter in some kind of text. So like this is the middle again. When I click text, we're going to get a preview of what the email body is going to look like. You know, and you can see that the middle is in the middle now because that's how we built the template. The link here, if I mouse over this and you look in the bottom left corner of the screen, you can see that that's going to take us to that, you know, whatever.salesforce.com / and then that 001. You can tell, I don't think you can see it here, but that is the 001 is the record IDs for account records. So we know that that's going to take us to our account. And if we were to click next, that would actually send the email. And we know that it's going to send the email with the appropriate, let me go back here. We know it's going to send an email with that exact email body that we were previewing in the previous screen. So Julia, let me take a pause there. As far as like getting the customer, you know, or allowing the user to put some custom text in that template. Does that answer your question?
That's perfect. It works. I get it now. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this was kind of a wide-ranging answer. Does anybody have any questions on anything that we walked through here today, as far as creating a screen flow, passing in the record versus the record ID, getting the screen flow to display on the layout versus a button? Any questions at all on any of the stuff that we went through here? Okay, cool. Well, let's see if we can open it back up to questions then. Nick, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm working on a record triggered flow for my sales team, and I want to build a flow that triggers on events. So I want to send an email alert to two senior level people on the sales team when the event status and the meeting set date is changed. But I only want to do that for the US sales team, which I have all those people in a public group right now. And I'm trying to figure out a way, is there a way I can set entry criteria on that record trigger flow so it only fires if like the event that's edited is created or assigned to one of these people that are in that public group. And then from there, I know how to build out the flow to send the email alert and everything. I'm trying to figure out how to specialize where the flow doesn't run for any of my other people in the org, just for that US sales team.
Yeah, let me say that back to you. So you have like event records that when they change, you want to notify some senior leadership. However, The only time that you want that kind of email alert to go through is if that event was created or the assigned to is somebody from like the US sales team. And you'll know that they're part of the US sales team because they're in a public group called US sales team.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I created that public group just trying to think that was the best way because I could make the flow work by hard coding the names in, like
Yeah.
saying, but I don't want to do it. That's not done. That doesn't allow, not very scalable. So I wanted to do it like where we can keep that public group updated with the US sales team. So that's what I'm looking at there.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna put a general statement out, and then we can open up for feedback from other folks. But I think this is actually harder than you would think to do this. But that being said, does anybody have kind of a good solution here for how you would do that? Basically, in your criteria, either the entry criteria or decision block, say do this logic only if the user ID that we grab from the assigned to or the user ID that we grab from the created by is in a public group, a specific public group. So my thoughts immediately go to, well, we have to get the people in the group, then we have to like iterate through it and compare it and eventually set it to like, yes, this person is in that group. Is there a more elegant way to do this?
Yes, well, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just thinking if you could add a field to the task event object that kind of identifies it and then use that as the criteria for the flow.
I thought about that, but so basically like a formula field that would say it's like either true or false based on whatever the criteria is. But the criteria in this case, it's the user ID is equal to or what? Like you can't, I don't think in a formula field you can say, is this thing in some list of things over here, right?
I don't know either. That was why I was kind of
great suggestion. I love the idea of taking the criteria from a flow and actually turning it into a formula field and just checking that formula field. But in this case, because we're looking up to something, I don't think that we can do that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Greg, you had a thought too, or?
A solution that I saw the other day, I haven't implemented it yet, is you create a permission set and you assign users to that permission set that you want to be in that. And then you just use a system variable to call up the permission set. And if they're in that set, then they have access. And I'm trying to find that exact verbiage, but you can look at a
custom permission or permission set.
A permission set, and then you just simply assign users to that permission set, and then the system variable will access that permission set and determine if the current user is in that permission set, and then it returns true or false. Okay. I'm trying to find it.
All right, so what I'm going to do here, let's see if we just jump into this. I'm going to save our previous flow here. Let's get rid of all of our nonsense. Now, I think the first thing that we would do is let's just talk about groups for a second. So if I just type in group, I'm assuming I should be able to find public groups. I don't think I have any here, so let's just create a new public group called US team. I don't know how many users I have, but I guess I'll put me and the integration user in here. And that's it. So now I have a public group that contains 2 users. Now, if I go to my flow and we create a new flow, again, we'll keep it simple. Instead of going through like activities, I'm just going to go with the account object as far as like create a by or something like that. Yep. So, because I think the heaviest lift here is figuring out is the created by user in that group, but is the user in a group is kind of the thing that we're trying to exercise here. So let's just go with account. When a record is created, and let's just keep it as that. And we'll call this account created flow. Not very creative. No description. Save. Okay. So that gets us into finally into the flow here where we can actually do something. So yeah, I think what you were describing is we would have to, you're saying here, if I go in my entry criteria, we change this to all, and then we say, well, no, because that's only object stuff. So let's do none. And let's go into a decision block and see if we can see anything in there that would be helpful. So decision, is this creator in the group?
Good question.
So, yeah.
For this group that are any of these users, would they be assigned to more than one like location? Like you've got the US group or whatever other areas?
Yeah, I mean, I have multiple business units, and they would fall under the different business units. The issue with that is that like within the US, and I won't bore you too long with our business model, but within that US sales team, there's multiple different departments within that US sales team. So like AMS US will be the US,
Sure.
but they can fall into different ones.
But specifically, if you have US versus non-US, would anybody ever be in both?
No.
So what if on the user object, you add basically a checkbox that says whether they're in a US location or non-US location, and then use that to create the formula on your event object in order to create the entry criteria?
Yeah.
Except, yes, I think that could work. But if we're talking about just like the group thing, if we wanted to drive it based on the groups, I wonder if we can do this actually. So here's where I was going to go with this. Like, if in this flow I did a get records and I said get the group first of all, we look for a group, right? And we say where the group name. So we'll keep this, as dynamic as possible depending on what environment this is in. But the group name is equal to, what did I call it? US team, right? So kidding me? Come on, US team. All right, we always want to get the first one. Then we can all pretend that I put a decision block like, did we find a group? Let's just pretend that we did for a second. And then now I'm going to do a get records for get team member, right? And then this is going to be the group member object. And this is where this could all fall down, right? So where the group ID is equal to the group from get the group dot ID, and the user or group ID is equal to the, what are we even on right now? An account. So it'd be the record. We said we're just going to, test this by the created by ID. So we try to find a group member where it's in the US group and the user ID is equal to this. And then we have I don't like this side panel thing. I like when I'm done, I just want to be able to click save and it disappears. I really don't like this at all. In any case, yeah, so we get the group, find the US team group, then we find a group member where it's the group is the US team and the member is the created by ID of the account. And then eventually we can say a decision block and we can say, did we find a group, or did we find no, is this person in the US team? And we're going to say yes. And we'll know if the group member, and then don't get tricked by anything else that pops up here. We just say the get team member is null, false. So in other words, did we find a group member that was part of that thing with those IDs set? And if the answer is yes, then all your additional logic would come here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that could be a way where.
Okay, yeah, I'll try that.
And so get the group, check to see if there's a group member with the group ID and the whatever user ID that you're checking. And if there is, then you should do the logic. And if not, you can just end gracefully.
So Bill, sorry to interrupt for other people, but I posted in the chat where you use the $permission variable, and then you have the name of your permission set. And if the current user is in that permission set, then it returns true.
I want to bet
I put
37 cents that we're not talking about permission set, but most importantly, we're talking about the custom permission. Okay, yeah. So in this case, you create a custom permission and then add that permission to the permission set and then assign the permission set to users. Okay, so so it's This is the key piece though. In the flow, you're actually checking whether or not they have the custom permission assigned. It just so happens you're giving them the custom permission by putting it in a permission set, but you could do that in a profile as well. But that's definitely a great one. You know what? I'm going to try to come up with an example where we can go through that next week. Custom permissions and permission sets. But yeah, so we are just about 3 minutes beyond overtime. Any final questions before we part ways for the day? Nick, I hope that helped.
It did. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate everybody joining. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll catch up next week. Thanks all.